any of you have seen the 90s movie Tremors, then you have a fair idea of today's cryptid. Burrowing its way through the Gobi Desert, the Mongolian deathworm is something to be feared and equally avoided by locals. According to British biologist Carl Schuker in his book The Unexplained, an illustrated guide to the world's paranormal mysteries, one of the world's most sensational creatures may be concealed amid the sands of the southern Gobi Desert. It is said to resemble a large, fat worm up to 1 meter or 3 feet long, and dark and red in color, with spine-like projections at both ends. It spends most of its time hidden beneath the desert sands, but whenever one is spotted lying on the surface, it is scrupulously avoided by the locals. According to legend, the dreaded Mongolian deathworm, which local people call Olgoi Korgoi, or loosely translated large intestine worm, has lived up to its name. It can kill in several fearsome ways, including spitting a stream of corrosive venom that is lethal to anything it hits. And if that doesn't do the trick, it's said to be able to electrocute its victims from a distance. Rarely seen and never photographed, it was mentioned in a 1926 book by paleontologist Roy Chapman Andrews, who didn't believe in the animal's existence, but noted stories of it circulated in Mongolia. Numerous organized expeditions and searches have been made over the years by both independent researchers and in conjunction with television shows. Despite extensive searches, eyewitness interviews, and even setting traps for the beast, all have come back empty-handed. Many of those who believe in the creature acknowledge that there is no hard evidence of its existence, but instead believe the legends and stories of them must have some basis in historical truth. The descriptions, mostly second and third-hand stories, from different places and times, are all too similar, they believe, to be anything but independent eyewitness reports. From a folkloric perspective, however, this is simply a sign that legends and stories of the deathworm has spread throughout the region, as commonly happens through trade and travel. Many people around the world can offer very similar descriptions of dragons, leprechauns, mermaids, and other fantastic, presumably non-existent, creatures, not from personal experience, but from hearing about them from others. So, is there a real animal behind the stories and legends? It seems doubtful. Compared to the North American Bigfoot or the Himalayan Yeti, for which there are dozens or hundreds of alleged footprints, photographs, and virtually no evidence of its existence. Consider that also no live or dead ones have been found. Every other creature known to exist has left behind a dead body or skeleton. In fact, the Gobi would likely preserve carcasses of the animal, due to the relative lack of predators and hot desert winds that slow decomposition. Inhabitants of the Gobi are aware of the global interest in their mystery monster, as well as offers of rich rewards for one of the creatures, live or dead, and if one was found, it would surely come to light. A zoological perspective may help us sort fact from fiction in the legend of the Mongolian deathworm. First of all, we should not be misled by the worm in its name. That's an English translation. The creature, if it exists in the inhospitable Gobi Desert, could not be a soft, fleshy worm. Instead, it is likely a type of snake or legless lizard. This also means it would be a vertebrate animal with a spine that would presumably be found by searchers. A variety of explanations have been offered for the animal, including perhaps a misidentified or new species of snake. The consensus among researchers, such as Schuker and author Richard Freeman, is that the Mongolian deathworm likely does not exist, and the belief is instead based upon sightings of either a type of limbless reptile known as worm lizard, which resembles a large worm, burrows underground and can reach several feet in length, or a type of sand boa. Of course, not all the characteristics of the worm lizard or sand boa are a perfect match for the deathworm. For example, terrestrial snakes can't deliver lethal electric shocks the way that electric eels, which are actually fish, not eels, for example, can. For that matter, several venomous snakes, primarily cobras and vipers, can spit poison, which, although not acidic, can certainly cause harm and blindness. Yet these reputed characteristics are based not on hard data, but on myths and stories. Some accounts of the deathworm even claim that its venomous spit can corrode metal instantly, which is physically impossible. With allowances made for exaggerations found in rumor, legend, and folklore, The worm lizard or a sand snake seem the most likely candidates. It is, of course, possible that the Mongolian death worms exist. Of course, there would have to be more than one of them to sustain what biologists call a breeding population, likely tens or hundreds of thousands of them. Perhaps next week, next month, or next year, such a bizarre creature will be found and examined by scientists. Until then, it seems likely that Roy Chapman Andrews' assessment nearly a century ago was correct. The creature is merely a legend. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more Unknown Files every Tuesday and Friday. And don't forget to check out the Unknown Territory podcast and the Sasquatch Army for more interesting and creepy cryptid content.